What if the hardest parts of your story were actually the beginning of something so powerful and so meaningful? Welcome to From That Comes This. This is the podcast where we trace the line between what happened and what came from what happened. I'm your host, Rebecca Foster, and I want you to know how much I appreciate you being here, being part of this community that we're building. If you aren't following us on Instagram yet, please do so. It's easy at From That Comes This podcast with an underscore. And you can also find us under the same tag on YouTube at From That Comes This podcast. I'm deeply humbled to know that this podcast is resonating with a great number of people. So thanks for showing up for us this week and all the weeks prior. Like so many, today's guest has a truly remarkable story. It involves true personal struggle and pain, but pain and struggle have been shifted into powerful purpose with a mission for change. This individual is a graduate of Hamilton's McMaster University. Our guest holds a Master of Social Work, her RSW. She's an expert in program development, strategic planning, grant writing, and advocacy. And she's the co-founder and former executive director of NORS, which stands for the National Overdose Response Service. She's also now holding the title of Community Innovation and Funding Specialist for NORS. This individual is driven by her lived experience, and she's going to share a little bit more about her journey so far. It is quite remarkable. With us is Kim Ritchie. Welcome, Kim, to From That Comes This.
Hi, Rebecca. It's a pleasure to be here today.
Well, it's nice to meet you. I do have to provide full transparency. This is our first meeting, but I got to see you up on stage not long ago. You are one of the distinguished recipients of the Hamilton YWCA Women of Distinction Awards, and you took home the Community Champion Award back in March.
Yes, I did.
How surprised were you? How delighted were you? What does this mean to you?
I was extremely surprised and delighted, but I guess the other women in my cohort that were nominated, I know some of them personally, and their work is phenomenal, like life-changing, groundbreaking work. And to be able to step onto that stage that evening was surreal.
You were in great company, I will tell you that. There were 1,100 people in attendance that night, which, that's remarkable. It was the 50th anniversary of the Women of Distinction Awards, so that makes your award extra special in my mind. But you were in good company, and you shone to me that night, and I told you this when I messaged you the next day, which kind of might have felt a little creepy, some strange woman that you've never met. You moved me to tears with your story, and it was a snippet of your story. So I appreciate you coming in to sit with us today to talk a little bit more about the importance of your journey so far, your lived experience, and the things that you're doing to advocate for others who may be where you were 15 years ago. Is that fair to say?
That's fair to say,
Okay,
for sure.
so let's talk about... we'll get into NORS and what NORS does shortly, but do you mind sharing, because what I did read about you is that you were surviving the streets of Hamilton for about 15 years?
That's correct.
Can you tell us a little bit about that experience? 15 years, that's a long time, Kim.
Yeah, it is a long time. But I grew up in that counterculture, to be fair.
You did?
Yes, I did. So my father, he was a notorious bank robber in this city for many, many years, and that's how I grew up. And my mother was one of the largest speed dealers in southern Ontario. Both were intravenous drug users. So I grew up in that kind of chaos.
Yeah.
Right? So I was acclimated to it long before I hit the streets.
Wow. You took my breath away. I didn't know that part. So you grew up in it. It was normal. What was it like as a kid? Like you say it very matter-of-factly that this is how you grew up, but as a young Kim, you don't know any different?
Well, I think we all know when we're kids and our families are different. I think that it becomes quite prevalent when you go to your friends' houses and their houses aren't like your house,
Right.
And there is CAS involvement, home invasions, police raids, watching people overdose. That was my childhood and my siblings' childhood. And I'm not going to pretend there's anything easy about it. Of course there isn't. It conditioned me to a world that most people only watch in media. And I didn't understand that for a long time. And I remember the isolation around that too, not having any of my, the neighbors' kids coming to my birthday party, stuff like that. Yeah, and just the separation from parents every time somebody got arrested or we were apprehended through the Children's Aid Society. So,
The trauma.
oh yeah, tons, just
I
layers of it.
Yeah. And I would, honestly, Kim, I wouldn't have known that part by seeing you in the public eye like I have, and by talking to you moments ago off mic. I would never have assumed that was your upbringing. So so 15 years on your own on the streets? So you go from, did you have some type of a
The
shelter?
transition?
Like when you were with your parents, when they were present? Did you have a house? Did you?
Yeah, there was a bit there. So, I grew up around this stuff, and my mother, she was an intravenous drug user, like I said, and one day her arm wasn't working, right? And I asked her to go to the hospital, but she wouldn't. And then one day she woke up and her legs didn't work, and it turned out she had developed 2 brain tumors and 3 lung tumors when I was about 15 years old.
From drug use?
I'm assuming,
Okay.
but I also think there's a genetic component.
Okay.
I don't want to say like
Right.
that's all one thing. Also because her twin sister got it as well later on. She developed cancer as well, and also brain tumors, and they were identical twins. And she was not a substance user. She did not even use cannabis.
Wow.
So I don't want to say it was entirely substance use related. I'm going to say there was a genetic predisposition, and brain tumor clustering in families is apparently a thing. I learned later on. So she got sick, and she got sick very fast, and she passed away.
I'm sorry.
It was a painful loss. And my mother, she was a heavy substance user, but she also did love us in the best ways that she knew how. And I think at some point in your life, you start looking at your parents and you stop demanding $1 from somebody who can only give you 20 cents, and you get at peace with that.
Yeah. You're doing it again. You're moving me to tears, Kim. I don't know how a kid survives all that, but thank God you did. I'm sorry about your mom. That's a lot. So you lost your mom at, how old were you at the time?
15.
15. Your dad still?
He was arrested
somewhat-
for bank robbery about 3 months later.
So you're alone.
Yeah.
Do you have like you mentioned your mom's twin sister? Are they there to pick up the pieces? No.
So it gets a little bit complicated here. So I also have 2 siblings, right? And my mom was dating a gentleman, but he was not very kind to her. He was abusive, like verbally. And me and him would get into standoffs, right? Because he would say cruel things to her when she was sick with the cancer. And I would
And here you are, her
challenge
fiercest
him back.
protector.
Yeah, right? So, like, once she passed away, he asked me to leave, and I did. So, at this point, we were living in Vineland in the country. Her business grew, so we needed less neighbors, right? So we were living in Vineland, and I was going to school out there, and at this time, I was at Beansville High School, and so she gets sick and die, and he asked me to leave, so I ended up in Hamilton. So at this point, my school, my friends, my support network, and my siblings they're all gone. And I end up in Hamilton with my mom's sister, but she's also dating one of my dad's former partners, right? Oh, no. Except he's more reformed now. I'm using air quotes for people that can't see. And me and him would get into physical altercations. He would get intoxicated. We'd get into physical altercations. I was about 16 at this time, and he said, choose. He gave an ultimatum to my aunt, and I said, I'm just going to leave now. So that's when I ended up on the streets of Hamilton.
And that was your only choice, you felt?
That
Or
was the only choice. There was no other options.
no one came looking for you? No.
No, I was given the ultimatum was given to my aunt, and I left. So that was it, right? And I qualified for orphans benefit at the time, which is ironic to me. So it's like $200 a month to top off your OW, your Ontario Works, and I qualified for Ontario Works. So
And you knew this at 16?
well,
Or
I figured it out.
You figured it out.
Yeah. So my aunt helped me get the Ontario Works because she knew I wasn't coming back to that house, and the orphans benefit she was already getting for me, but then she just handed it over to me. So
That was kind of her.
yeah.
So you're 16. You come to Hamilton. Beamsville's not that far away. You come to Hamilton. What is that? I can't even imagine. Like, where did you know to go where you could find shelter or people that you could connect with, or like tell me?
Well, that's okay. So I started going to high school here, so I had already made little friends.
Okay.
And also, my mom sold dope here for a long time. I knew lots of people here.
Okay.
Lots. All of them her customers and their kids.
Yeah.
And that's who I sought support from.
And did they let you stay at their home, or like did you quote unquote couch surf, or
Couch surfing
Okay.
happened for a while with different friends, but then, I met a gentleman much older than myself, and he was 35 and I was 16. And this is where like the sexual exploitation starts to go, right? And at this point, when my mom was very sick with cancer, I caught her one day trying to get high, right? And her arm wasn't working that day because every day she'd wake up and different body parts wouldn't function. And she was crying, and I just said, well, let me help you, right? So I helped her hit up. So I already knew how to do it from then.
Yeah.
And then when I was on my own in the city of Hamilton, that's when I just began to use myself, right? So my using was escalated pretty quickly.
So forgive me. You watched your parents do things that you knew weren't okay, right?
She was dying.
She was dying, and you helped. I understand that part. And then you started using.
I was already using substances,
You
but I
were.
started using intravenously after that.
You did.
Yes, I did.
Were you not scared?
No.
Tell me what's going through your head. Is
Well-
this just an escape? And again,
Yeah.
I'm asking
okay.
because I don't understand the.
That's all right. Well, I'm a 16-year-old child in a city, and everything's gone. My whole life was ripped from me.
Yeah.
Dealing with complex grief, copious amounts of trauma, and no support network. And the only support I had was a much older abusive man. So
I'm sorry.
figuring out how to shoot up wasn't very hard for me. And, most people at that time are going to their first prom or getting their first job. I was a full-blown phlebotomist. I became very skilled at phlebotomy and navigating the human cardiovascular system. It was very easy for me to figure out.
This is mind blowing for me, Kim. So did doing the substance, did this make you feel different? Did it take away the hurt?
Oh, yeah.
Did it numb the pain? Like these are all things
It did all
we
of that.
hear, but tell me, like, how you know about it. You watched your mom suffer through a lot of it, and then you chose to do that.
I think growing up around it and seeing people throw away everything for it, you start to wonder what's so good about it, right?
Okay.
And also, it made me bond with my parents, right? When I first started using substances with cannabis, alcohol, acid, all the other more socially acceptable ones at the time, I made me closer to my mom prior to getting sick.
Okay.
It didn't wedge between us. That wasn't a thing.
It was
and using more afterwards. And this became like an endless stream too. Like, I want to be clear, like the snowball effect that happened after that was pretty extraordinary, starting sexually exploited, onto the streets, and then engaging in sex work myself, being arrested all the time and thrown into jail. The many, many substance related injuries I started to develop, being in a wheelchair twice, clinically dead 3 times, the strangulation from the serial rapist at 17. Like, this is what happened.
Kim,
Yes.
this is more than most people could endure in 10 lifetimes.
I know.
So you mentioned sex trade. Sorry, were you forced to,
In the beginning.
and
Yes.
then it just became,
When I left him, it was such an easy way to earn income. And honestly, it was on my money, right? Nobody
Yeah.
was taking it from me, and I just earned it on my own after that. And it really supplied my substance use, right? And yeah, just being in and out of jail. And I always found it ironic being so young on the streets in this city and the discrimination I faced even then, as a 15-year-old child, because I came here at 15, right? So my mom died, I ended up here at 15. And it was extraordinary, the dehumanization that happens. And the only shelter they had, and I'm not going to name the
No, it's
organization, but there's only one new shelter in Hamilton. And at that time, they had a lot of rules, right? They're much more harm reduction centered now.
Right.
But I couldn't comply with those rules.
well, it's hard to comply with rules in general when you're living in a world where there are no rules. Is that fair to say?
Well, different set,
Okay.
for sure.
Fair. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. The rules are not what I would have understood. So again, there is no judgment here. The questions I'm asking come from genuine curiosity
Oh, yeah.
because there is a large amount of stigma attached to drug use.
Oh,
right?
yeah, tons, tons and tons and tons. And this is part of it, right? Like even when I was a young kid on the street, and I look back at it, right? Because when I was out on the street, I thought I knew so much, you know what I mean? Like most of us do when we're that age. And it's just interesting to me because I would have people, call me names driving by, and
But they don't know who you are.
but I'm
They're
also a
making
kid.
assumptions.
This
Yeah.
is the part that gets me, right? I'm a kid. And when I think about the adults back then and the cruelty that was inflicted when I was a homeless youth, and I think about and sit with that for a minute, I don't understand it, right? I don't understand how people go to that place. But this is what happens with homelessness and stigma, right? Because when I see a 15-year-old child on the street, I don't automatically want to hurl slurs at them or throw things at them, but this is what was happening when I was out there, right? So this is what gets me. And I don't know how to explain how prevalent the dehumanization is that we want to do this to a youth
It
or
makes
to anyone,
no sense to
right?
me, to anyone, yes.
Yeah, but this is something that was regular. So I don't want to pretend like that wasn't a thing. That was a thing. So when we talk about stigma and dehumanization and stereotypes and what happens when we turn people into others and we stop seeing them as humans, and the violence will even inflict on a youth that we wouldn't inflict on that youth if they were standing in a high school hallway is quite real and still very real today, if not more so, I would argue.
So how did we get there? Who am I? Who is anyone to judge a youth, a person standing on a street corner?
I think it's how we get there. I think there's some larger social constructs that happen there. I think I can go into
We don't need to get,
capitalism and dehumanization and the idea that if you're not productive, that
Then
you're
you're-
somehow unworthy, right?
So you don't deserve a chance because you aren't in the moment being what is defined a productive, contributing member of society in the moment.
Right? And also not even just perceived as not productive. Like as a disabled person, I can tell you that people often perceive disabled people as not productive, but a menace even.
No.
And this is where we get into the rocky area, right? Because I was never provided, like during my many years out there, I was never had interventions that came into place that could have stopped this cycle. I was just arrested all the time. So every time I ended up incarcerated, I just ended up meeting more people who were very skilled at securing funds for substances and expanding my criminal network. It's like going to conferences in a professional sphere. So I think it's really interesting that we use this as a solution.
Yeah.
It's like, I feel like this is the most counterproductive solution you could ever come up with, and when I sit with it, it's just like, no, I got really good at criminality and really good at surviving. And boy, did I expand my networks from youth facilities all the way to, adult corrections. And it didn't help. At no point did I come out reformed. At no point was anything I ever navigated addressed. I just became more entrenched.
Yeah. Well, just put you back out there, right?
Yeah.
Don't give you any tools or resources or support.
Correct.
And you're supposed to do better, Kim. You're
Just
supposed
be
to
better.
be better.
Now that you have a criminal record, let's see you get a job. Let's see you, develop the life skills necessary. Let's see you transition.
Yeah. So, in and out of jail, approximately how many times?
I couldn't stay out for more than 3 months at a time for 8 years. They would arrest me for anything, honestly.
But did you look at that as an opportunity to be in a safe, and it's a horrible perspective, but you're off the street, you're being fed. I know you're in jail, but did any of that ever cross your mind? Like, you're in and out so often, it became normal.
I also had pretty severe substance-related injuries, right? So when I talk about, being in the wheelchair twice, that's because I developed blood clots, right? DVTs. So these, when I was in youth detention, I wasn't with the general pop for a bit because they were worried about the clots dislodging at that time, right? I understand. But then I couldn't participate when I did go to general pop in any of the activities, right? So they removed me from those things, which didn't feel very good.
Right.
Right? And then every time I got arrested in different situations, I remember one time I got arrested, I was at the court cells, and they took me to the hospital for withdrawal, right? Because they were afraid I was going to fall on the floor and smash my head, right? Because the withdrawals were so severe. And that wasn't abnormal, So can I say these institutions were a mechanism that kept me somewhat alive? A little bit. Were they really effective? I would say no.
No.
I would definitely say no. I think when I had this severe infection in my leg and I couldn't be in general pop because they needed to make sure it wasn't MRSA, right? I was in segregation for 3 weeks straight. You know, like monkeys pull their and start self-mutilating at 4 weeks, right? And we talk about how detrimental segregation can be. And it is.
Yeah.
And this is like, I don't think that helped. I really don't. I think a hospital bed would have been better at that time than segregation for the wounds that I had. And these are all like, nothing I did was ever like heavy federal crimes. These are petty.
What
yeah.
were these
Solicit
crimes?
for the purpose of prostitution, possession of like drug paraphernalia. Like these are all just like smaller petty offenses, you know? And it's just so ironic to me that happened from it.
Right. And so while you're there, did you ever get an opportunity to speak with a therapeutic professional? Is that, forgive me for
I'm just giggling because
my naive approach.
No, it's all right. I'm only giggling because the therapists in jail, I know they mean well, but more than anything, they just give you so much medication. I got so medicated in Barton Street, I couldn't even sit up in my bed, which worked well for me. I didn't want to be there anyways.
Right.
But like, yeah, because what are you going to do, right? Well, you can't, and medication is just a tool. It is not a cure. It's a tool that's supposed to be complementary to some sort of therapeutic approach.
But
and
at the end of the day, it's more drugs that
more
are
drugs.
altering your what you're being. You're not mentally there. You might be physically there, but you're sleeping or whatever. So
yeah.
Wow, Kim, I wasn't expecting this much, and I appreciate you being so open and honest and forthright with all of this. And I'm sorry that was your journey and that was most of your childhood, and that you witnessed the things. But all of that, they often say our journey is to set us on the course that we're supposed to be for life. So
Correct.
I know there's much more to the past and being on the street for 15 years. And it must be hard to revisit. And I know you do it often because you speak publicly about this at various events and for various organizations. And I think that's remarkable. But how, from that comes this, is the title of our podcast. So from all of that, how did you get to be where you are today, an incredible advocate? Like, what pulled you out of this depth of something I can barely comprehend, and how you survived it all? What brought you to here?
So this gets a bit darker before it
That's
gets better?
okay.
Okay, good. And also, I just want to highlight, too, that my story, though unique in some ways, isn't that unique. It's many people's story out there.
I understand, and I appreciate that. But you're here to tell the story, and there's a reason for that. So thank you.
But mostly I just want to highlight that because I just want to humanize my comrades out there, right? Still on the streets, still trying to save each other, more than anything. So for me, my substance use continued, right? It just continued. At this point, I'm judge, jury, and executioner. I didn't believe that sobriety was even a possibility, you know, because I've never seen it. I've never seen people get better. So my substance use it kept going, you know, for years. And one day I'm with my friend and we're trying to secure some products, and we get some. And we're walking by the Galley Pump Bar, the train tracks there, right? And you know how the shipping trains go back and forth slow sometimes and they stop on tracks?
Right.
So me and him come up to it, it does this, and he's like, let's just hop over. And I was like, yeah, let's just do that. My house is just over there. I want to go get high. You know what I mean? And this was the intention. I want to be clear. I just wanted to get home to get high, right? And the irony of this is not lost on me. So he goes over, and then I go to follow, and they have those handlebars. And I go to jump up. It hits the back of my head, and it cracks it, right? And then I fall beside the train. And then this other train is coming.
No.
Yes. And it didn't get me in half, thank God, and it just crushed my hand and degloved it of its flesh, right? So that's what they said. And I didn't get up because the trains are moving. I can't move, right? You have to stay down because there's a lot of suction in them. So I don't know really what's happened to my hand, because when you get a serious injury like that, kind of like when people are in war and they get shot and they don't know it, it's the same. I had that same experience, man.
Well, your body and your mind, you're protecting everything.
Body shock. It's surreal too. Yeah. So the train finally moves, and I get up, and I run over to my friend, and I have my hand, tucked under my arm, and then I pull it out, and it's completely mangled, of course. And I didn't know it was my hand, so I said, effing cool, and then I realized it was my hand. I know. He told me that part. I don't even remember
don't
that.
remember it.
Yeah, but that's what he
Out-of-body
said.
experience.
Yeah, and then he, and then I realized my hand, I started screaming, right? And then some good Samaritan, who to this day I don't know who that was, pulls up in a black car. They had leather seats, and they tell me to get into the back of the car. I get in the back of the car. They drove me to the general hospital. My surgeon told me that I ran through the ER doors and slipped in my own blood in a pool of it. And
Oh, God, Kim.
I know, right? But this is the interesting part. Not that that wasn't interesting, but this is the more interesting part. People really think that, substance use has these cataclysmic events that somehow just magically lead to sobriety, but that's not how that works. Rock bottom is like the most prevalent logical fallacy within substance use. And I like to talk about this because there is a pinnacle moment where the desire to change needs to meet the resources. And if they don't meet, then it's mute. It's a mute point.
So this is where the crisis is. that
Yeah,
they don't-
but it
okay.
wasn't met with resources.
Okay. So is this your life-altering moment in time?
Almost.
Because
Ready?
Oh.
Oh, yeah.
But now you have a disability as a result of
yeah.
that incident.
I got a
my
little
friend.
Lego hand. That's what I
It's-
like to call it.
It's beautiful, and thank God you have it. And I wouldn't have noticed, Kim. But that didn't change your trajectory at that point? Okay, what happened next?
Well, I end up in hospital and I'm in the ICU for a bit, and they're trying to do all these skin grafts. They took like 11 off my thigh, but they won't stick, right? Because I'm so malnourished that they won't adhere, right? So like I'm in the hospital, I'm going through these places, and I get discharged from hospital, but I don't have residency. I have like some money buried in a can in a field. I have,
Sorry,
a prescription.
What? You buried money.
Oh yeah, I buried
Okay.
money out in a field. It was just a survival tactic I used back in the day. So, I know that's there, but I was discharged with like nothing from the hospital, and nor did I speak to a social worker while I was in there. And this was very common for people who use substances even now, I would argue, though it's gotten a bit better. So I'm discharged from hospital with nothing, and of course I start using again, right? So I go get the money, I end up in the City Motor Hotel, which they tore down, and I'm using a lot. And I end up missing a hit in my leg, and it swelled up, and then the skin graft started to deteriorate from my hand. And at this point, I'm just like, okay, I can't do this anymore.
That
And-
was your wake up.
Oh no, that was my death salute, right? So now I was ready to
You were
let.
done.
I was done. So
Kim.
I've had endocarditis before, right? Which is a heart valve infection, which is a substance-related injury. And I knew that if I waited for the infection to burn through my body, it would take me out. So I got comfortable with that, right? So I was like, I'm done, right? And my ex, his name was Steven, he came into the hotel room and he begged me for my own life. And I agreed reluctantly. And I called the paramedics and I explained to them that I was explained to them there was needles in the room. And they took a while to get there. And then they got there and they took me to the ER. And I spent 12 hours in the emergency waiting to be seen with the bone exposed in my hand because it was sticking out again. And there was like no rush for it, right? And ironically, Stephen died of endocarditis himself about 5 years later.
sorry.
Right? And this is the irony of it, right? The thing he saved me from took his life. Because he did save my life, because I ended up in the ER. And the doctor said because I didn't do any of my follow-ups and I didn't come to anything after I was discharged from hospital, that they were going to amputate the rest of my hand. That was it, done.
So you're being punished.
Yeah, I was being punished, even though, I was homeless. I don't know how I'm supposed to make all these appointments, but, neither here nor there.
honestly-
So he says this to me. I'm devastated, of course, devastated. And this social worker comes up to me and she's like, they don't want to admit you, right? They didn't want to at the time. And I was like, okay, fair enough. So they sent me to a detox at Womankind.
As
and
your bone is sticking.
Oh yeah,
out
they
still?
gave me some clean bandages, some clothes from donations, and they gave me a follow-up appointment to come see my surgeon and, a bunch of antibiotics. And the poor women working at the detox, right? They were, what the heck is this girl doing here? Because they have to tape up my
Right.
hand, they have to tape up my leg because it's also injured, and the my leg atrophies, right, from the blood clots and the swelling. It gets stuck into like this position, so I can't walk either. And they had to tape up my leg, tape up my hand, and carry me to the shower. And they had no idea why the hospital sent me there, none. And to this day, me neither, right? It's just punishment. And I had never seen kindness that wasn't transactional, right? So I'm just like, hey, like, do you have family that are substance users? Like, I can't comprehend why they were helping me.
Because they care.
Because they cared. Yes, they did. Because they cared, And that was such like an eye-opener. So that's from here to there. As we were saying, that was the moment. And that facility supported me. It took another 4 radical reconstructive surgeries to rebuild my hand.
No doubt.
My surgeon, not the one in the ER, she was amazing. And she went against her colleagues and she advocated for me. And she said, I want to help you, Kimmy. And we want to, at the time, it was more experimental. The growth patches, they use them more these days, a lot more. Back then, not so much. And she's like, I want to help you, but we can't do this if you're not going to stay sober. And I'm like, I will do everything I can to do that. And
Thank
womankind,
God for her.
right? So she goes, my colleagues do not want to do this. They do not support my decision here.
They're judging you that you're not going
They're
to take
condemning me.
They're condemning you, but
Yeah.
they've made it. Yeah.
I have a thumb now because of her.
Do you still stay in touch with her?
Oh, not really. It's
No.
been so many years now, right? But
Right.
she, through that year, because it took 4 surgeries, I want to be clear, 4 surgeries. And womankind kept the bed for me. They put me in one of their homeless beds and shelter beds within the treatment floor and gave me access to the counselors. But like I was learning to live with my disability too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're pretty. The word strong isn't strong enough. I don't have a word. You're incredible. I am so glad that the right people came in although it was later than it should have been, but at the right time. And you're here today to talk about all of this. And I literally am shaking. I did not hear this part of the story, this part of the journey at the awards gala that we referenced earlier. And I'm really I'm in awe of you. So you promised to stay clean. You held your promise. So good for you. Thank God you did. What came how then did you become an advocate? Did you then go back to school? How did all of this happen
When I came from the counterculture I came from, it's not as simple as that. I didn't know the rules. I actually went through culture shock.
I bet.
When I first got sober, I can't even begin to explain what that's like if somebody hasn't traveled, to be honest with you, because it was very real, even though we were in the same society,
thing, yeah.
2 different cultures, right? And it took me a bit to learn the rules and to understand and come to terms with the most emotional regulation and myself and the things that I had been through. My teeth were really messed up. So the first few years of my sobriety were mostly just trauma work and physical work.
And you
my
had the
teeth fixed.
support for all of that?
I secured it.
Okay.
So Womankind helped me secure ODSP because I am now disabled, right?
Okay.
And they helped me. ODSP allowed me to get my teeth redone, which was very beneficial because discrimination against people with bad teeth is so real, man. The difference of how I was treated when I had very, very poor teeth to now is astronomical. Again, right, that dehumanization thing for appearances. And it was just a slow stepping stone, learning the rules and learning to live with my disability. It took me forever. When I was in hospital, they gave me this Pop-O-Matic. Do you remember the Pop-O-Matic when we were kids in the 80s? And it was you had to get the shapes in really fast before the thing popped up.
Yeah.
That
I'm
was my
wait,
physiotherapy.
I'm way older than you, but anyway, yes, I do remember. So that was your, but
yeah, they brought in this old archaic toy in the hospital bed, and they're like,
had a
"You need to
reason.
do this." Yeah, hand-eye motor coordination.
right.
But every day I'm going at this thing until it hurts. Right?
and you did you have that kind of a toy as a kid? Did you have all that stuff?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So
my mom sold drugs. I had
you
lots
had
of
lots
toys.
of things.
But
Forgive me, but I'm okay.
Oh, no,
was
it's
this
okay.
new in general
Yeah,
for
yeah.
you? So back to the basics
Yeah.
to start that. You're taken back in time, literally, as you're trying to heal and learn how to live with a disability, and then, appearances. I'm sorry that happened, but here you are.
Yeah.
And so after you started to be able to cope with everything that is now this different world for you, this different way of living, the rules, you talk about the rules. And I think we forget, we've grown up a certain way and society expects us to be a certain way and do this a certain way and at a certain time. So you're dealing with all of that on top of a disability healing, the trauma healing part. Can you say that was easy to do?
Heck no.
And you had the resources for those
I found the
discussions?
resources. So for me, I started out with the 12-step groups, right? And they were really helpful in the beginning, but eventually they didn't become very helpful. But in the beginning, they were. And the 12 steps themselves, I love them. I think that they're a great tool for learning the rules too, by the way, because they teach you these principles, right, to kind of embed in your life. And they give you a code to follow, which works well for me. I'm a bit, neurodivergent and I got a bit of autism, right? So it really helped to have this solidified set of values, right? And understanding integrity exists in both cultures, but it looks different, right?
Looks different.
So integrity now is just living and standing by my principles, even when it costs me, right? Even in those moments, and this is something that I live by for myself. And those were bestowed upon me. They were gifted to me by others. And outside of that, the resources came as well. And yes, I did end up going back to school. So of course I didn't have a traditional education. Most of my education came from just reading in segregation and in hospital beds with all my injuries and just consuming novels, right? Even though I have like a partial dyslexia as well and partial dyscalculia that I got diagnosed with grade 5, I just threw myself into it. It was the only escape I had. So I found solace in these things. So when it came time to re-educate, I didn't have like the traditional educational background with the basics other people had. I had to start from scratch. So I went to St. Charles. I did that for 3 years. I graduated with honors and the social science award. And then, it snowballed from there, right? I had my first legal job where I was cleaning houses before. I got my first job as working human trafficking, right? As a human trafficking advocate. For my first social work job. I know it really one to the other, right? But remember, I have a long, very complex criminal resume that has a lot of transferable skills.
Well, but that's a great way to look at it. And you took those
transferable
strangely
skills.
scary transferable skills and applied them to good, and you're helping others. So your journey was a little longer to get the education side, but you did it with all of these challenges and the adversity coming at you. So you did it. Then you started, and I don't want to fast forward too much.
It's okay.
But I wish I had 5 more hours to sit and talk about.
We could fast forward.
No. How did you get to where you are today? So the education component, you had jobs along the way.
Yeah.
You were supporting others that were going through similarities to what you went through as a younger person. So all of that looks like this, and you realize there's a much bigger need in Canada and beyond, in Hamilton, but nationally, right? So how did you come up with this idea for NORS?
Well, just before NORS, right? So a lot of the work I did was service work, and this is one of the principles bestowed upon me within the 12-step community, right? And I threw myself into volunteer work even then with my friend Deb Nansen, who's now gone. She was one of the largest community advocates in Hamilton and St. Catharines.
And when you say now gone?
She passed away from cancer.
I'm sorry.
But she came from the same life as me.
She did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
unfortunate.
I just threw myself in. I was already volunteering, already giving back. And, that's part of the things is like helping others like ourselves, sponsored hundreds of women within those communities. I was already publicly speaking in those communities as well. And from there, that just became where I knew I belonged.
What gave you the courage to do that?
That's
yeah.
I love talking.
Okay. So you always love to talk, the social side of it.
Yeah.
So you have no qualms about getting up and sharing your story.
No.
I love that for you. You're meant to be doing this.
It's a narrative therapy too, though, to be fair. Like there's a self-indulgence piece in there where the more we talk it out, the more we can reflect and the more we can feel the feelings.
And I love that you acknowledge that. And I love that you also know that you're helping people that don't have someone in their corner, right? They don't have the resources. And here you are, someone who's lived all of the same types of things that many are living or going through, or maybe they're going through worse, or maybe you went through worse, but there's no judgment. You're not judging everyone. Yeah. You understand truly what these individuals are living.
And that's a part of it too, right? And this is what happened with the NORS piece. So, I finished that. I go do my college SSW, right, at Mohawk, and I graduate with honors. And then I begin my university, right? So then I go for my bachelor's of social work. And at this time is where I met my friend Rebecca, right? And I'm already doing the volunteer work. I'm already immersed in community. I'm already leaning into that field because it spoke to my heart, right? Mm-hmm. Everybody finds what sets their heart on fire in the social services, and just showing up for my communities was mine. Because I know that we have this idea of like vilifying communities, but a lot of those people saved my life. They kept me warm in a tent. They stopped me from overdosing. They showed up at a hotel and begged me for my own life. Yeah. So these are people that are still out there. I still have friends out there on those streets, sleeping in tents, still suffering, still keeping each other alive. And to not show up for them, it just doesn't feel right. And this is where NORS kind of comes into play, right? So I meet Rebecca in the 12-step rooms, and, we became best friends. Beautiful. And we you start this little group called Grenfell Ministries, right? And we work together to get the charity number, and we're just doing street outreach, right? We're getting supplies and we're handing them out to community.
Don't say just. You're doing something no one else is doing. That's pretty huge.
Thanks. And it was the little church groups. We used the Universalist University, sorry, I'm saying that wrong, church on, sorry, I forget the street.
It's okay.
Yeah. But like it's, we were holding little things there like self-esteem groups
Right.
and just trying to show up for people, you know? And she comes to me one day and she says, you know, Kimmy, there's this thing in the States they're doing, and it's virtual safe drug consumption, where they stay on the phone with people when they get high, and if they experience an overdose or an adverse drug effect, they get 911. She goes, I want to do that here.
Wow.
So we looked into it. We talked to our insurance company. At this time, we now secured our charity status, right? With the CRA, we had a functioning board, and we were doing our volunteer work. And we had like a little group of volunteers, I'm going to say 20, 25 at that time. And we talked to the insurance people, and they're like, well, yeah, it's like a suicide line. We're like, yeah, sure, that works. And then, and we had an app. We had an app called, at the time, I think it wasn't TalkRoute, it was something else. And we used this app so we can have a number that is linked to our phones, so we can supervise people's consumption. And we got some pushback even from communities,
Really?
folks saying like, well, they're not going to call the line, they're not going to trust it, but we're peers.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and when people call in for help,
Yeah.
they know that they're dealing with a peer who has been there,
Yeah.
potentially.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
And
okay.
who else can supervise better than a peer?
Yeah. Yeah. And
Who else
so
knows?
already you have a connection with these people on the phone that you're trying to save their life, or
Yeah.
talk them through something, or be the one to call 911 if they go quiet. Is that,
Stop breathing,
Yeah.
Stop responding.
wow. That's a lot, Kim.
Oh,
That's
it gets more interesting.
Okay, keep going.
Here we go. So I'm working at a shelter at the time, and Rebecca's working at a safe injection site here in Hamilton, and we're doing this off the side of our desk. I'm also in full-time university. So this is just a labor of love.
Yeah.
And we're doing this, and we launch our little project, and it takes off really fast, right? And then some folks reach out to us from BC, and Dr. Gosh reaches out to us from Calgary when they hear about this, and we all meet, and then we talk about building NORS, right? So then we wanted to create NORS together, and we did. And we talked to Health Canada. We ended up securing funding when we applied for SUOP, and ironically, we're running it for 8-9 months as a pilot project, just to see what it looks like, right? Is it possible? Is it feasible? This is before the money came into play, and then COVID hits.
Right.
Now the service is needed more than ever.
Yeah.
Right? Everything's needed more than ever. And we secure funding from Health Canada, not just to run NORS, but also one of the first treatment programs in Canada that offered all modalities of wellness, everything from cannabis as an exit drug, safe supply, tapering, abstinence, whatever people wanted, through peer-led case management at home withdrawal. And we ran that for 2 years. The line's going, and it's going strong. And everything, we had to go from like a volunteer framework and leave our jobs and build it into an employment framework in like less than 90 days.
Wow.
To accommodate the amount of funding we had received. And I'm also at this time writing grants for like Sex Workers Action Program and some other agencies as like a side thing. And I also volunteer with a lot of other agencies here in Hamilton even now. And one of them is the Substance Overdose Prevention Education Network. So these are like, grant writing's a weird skill I have. So I try to use it.
It's amazing that you have the skill, because I know people that write grants, and now I know you, and you're a grant writer, and it is a unique skill set on top of everything else you're doing. So good for you.
But yeah, it just takes off, you know, and it was a lot of work, man.
Yeah.
Any business, whether it's a charity or a for-profit, the labor is endless in the first few years, you know. There's no time off. And Rebecca, she became unwell, and she started using.
Yeah.
And I had to walk away. And unfortunately, 7 months after, she passed away from a fentanyl overdose in her home here in Hamilton. And this is the part, right?
Yeah.
This is the part that I can't make clear to people. The stigma was so prevalent for her that she couldn't even call the line she helped build. And now her children, which she has 4 sons, do not have a parent.
Yeah.
You know, and I have a running list of around 60 people, and that list just grows each year. I go to many funerals in a year of people who passed away from overdose. I just went to one 2 weeks ago and another one a month ago. And I wish I could make people understand that our community members are dying.
And that's, you're trying, Kim. And how do we help you with that? What do we, the collective we, need to do better?
I think whenever I do any sort of public speaking or other peers do, I have to tell them not to read the comment section.
After.
There's a reason for this. I understand, and I want to highlight this. A lot of things are bots, okay? Our internet is very much, becoming the dead internet.
Yeah.
But also, some of them are not.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a long period in my life where I was written off as a menace, somebody unworthy of participating in society, and there was people that probably wished death upon me that, and I don't want to use too many obscenities in describing some of the words, but,
you can
crack
say.
whore, junkie, they all deserve to die. And I even see this now on our local Facebook groups, right? And
It's unacceptable. I'm sorry.
but this is the reality, right? The dehumanization that happens to people who use drugs, especially if it's compounded by like race or sexual orientation, is so real. And I don't know how to rehumanize someone in someone's eyes when it gets to that point. I just don't. And the only thing I can say is trying to intervene before that. This is like where education comes into play and having conversations for those who are ambiguous and don't know where they lie with these things, and trying to lean into that. There are some amazing groups out there like Mom Stops the Harm, and these are incredible advocates of people who lost loved ones to drug use.
Yeah.
And
Kim, I need to say you're part of the solution, okay? And we need more Kims in the world, and we all need to take a step in that right direction and not be judgmental of what we see or perceive when we're driving by somewhere. And how do we help, right? What are the ways to do that? And that is reaching out to an organization like NORS, for example, to ask how we can help support those in a vulnerable, less in a vulnerable situation. A lot of people, Kim, don't understand addiction.
Oh, I know.
Right? So, and again, there's no judgment here, but there are people that cannot understand how deeply down a rabbit hole one can go, figuratively, but physically, I guess, from a drug-induced perspective. What do you say to them?
I do think it's fascinating only because substance dependency or dependency in general is so prevalent these days, whether it's sex, work, gambling, phones, gaming, pornography.
And are those deemed acceptable addictions?
Some of them are.
Okay.
And, my sister, she drank herself to death, but her addiction was acceptable. And mine wasn't. And she died with, still married, the properties, only off work for like a year and a half. And I look at her death, and hers was socially acceptable, but I don't go around screaming from the rooftops to close every bar because I know what happens, and we'll start brewing in bathtubs, and then we're going to start making schwill that'll make people go blind. We don't need to do this again. It doesn't work. Prohibition doesn't work.
Right.
And I will decry this from every rooftop. It wouldn't have saved my sister. It wouldn't have.
Right.
So when we talk about these things, and I say that, Rebecca's death was a drug policy failure, this is what I'm talking about. When we criminalize people who use substances, we're just making them better criminals. And that's it.
You lived that.
Literally my reality.
Yeah.
And it took a train accident, and even that didn't stop it right away. It took the aftermath of the accident to do it.
Once reality actually set in. But you made the choice, and you're here today, and you're doing amazing things. And we're going to post ways for people to get in touch with NORS and to connect with you. I guess what I could talk to you for hours, Kimmy. Can I call you Kimmy?
Yeah,
I
Kimmy
love
works.
that. Kimmy, you are fierce, and I am so grateful that you found your way out and you had others to help you. Did you hear that? She had other people helping her.
Villages.
Villages. And that is what we are missing.
Yeah.
We are missing that component. So we're not going to find we're not going to fix everything today, Kim.
Yeah.
But what you are doing matters. What your team is doing matters. The stats you've fielded over 20,000 calls since NOR's inception. You saved over 300 lives, approximately. Right.
Over.
These are big numbers, and there are people that are in situations like you were that don't know about the organization. So our commitment to you is that we will help educate others as much as possible, that we all, hopefully those that are listening and watching, take a different view when they're driving by someone that they may otherwise have judged, who's unfortunately living on the street or using to help ease the pain that they may be experiencing, or whatever the reason. It is not for us to judge, but what can we do better to help? And I think that's the message today. Is there any last minute comment that you would like to leave with anyone? Because you are much more proficient at this than I. What would you say to those that are listening and watching today?
If I could say anything, I know that everything feels very large and overwhelming. I know we have a housing crisis, a drug poisoning crisis, and the rise of gender-based violence, and it can feel almost debilitating that we are bombarded every day with external horrors happening in society, that we're on the precipice of a war, and I know everyone's really, really tired. But I really like that saying that we look for the helpers, and if we don't see one, we need to be one. And that's it. And whether we can give time, money, resources, whatever is at our disposal within our means and within reason, because some people have no time, but they have a little bit of money, and some people have lots of things to donate, but no, they can give the energy of mutual aid, whatever it is.
Whatever. Be a helper.
Be a helper. And we don't have to tackle every issue. Just pick the ones that speak to you, and they bleed into each other. They always do.
Yeah. Be aware, my friends. Be aware.
Yeah.
Kim Ritchie, it has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for sharing your story with us today. Please keep going, keep fighting for your friends that are still our friends.
Our friends,
that
our
are
neighbors.
Out there, our neighbors that are out there and that need our help. Thank you, and continued success. We're going to be talking again. I know you're kind of stuck with me now, Kim, but Kim Ritchie, thank you. You are beyond an advocate. You are a remarkable human being. Thanks for all you're doing.
Thanks for having me here.
Today's conversation with Kim Ritchie reminds us that behind every statistic is a human being. Let that sink in. The beauty of innovation, of peer-led solutions like the National Overdose Response Service, or NORS, it means that lives are being saved in real time, and you can be a part of that. Kim's work is challenging stigma. It's redefining care, and it's showing what's possible when lived experience leads the way. The shame we may carry from the past, whatever our experiences were, can be turned into such a powerful catalyst for change, and Kim is the example of that. We just need to give ourselves permission to try and to keep trying and take it all one day at a time. So thank you for being a part of this very special community that we're building. Remember, you matter, your story matters, and please believe in yourself and in others, because from that comes this, with love.